Continuing to follow the new special session, a bill to end taxpayer-funded lobbying is on the special session agenda. Republican Senator Mays Middleton of Galveston says Texas spends about $100 million every 2 years paying advocacy groups in ways he feels are against the desires of voters. East Texas News' Michael Richardson spoke with Middleton and an Austin-based lobbyist about the bill.
Republican Senator Mays Middleton says lobbyists funded by governments from Texas's more Democratic-leaning counties are impeding certain bills. He wants to do away with the practice entirely in an effort, he says, to increase the voices of rural Texans.
If you think about this in reverse, there's 254 counties, there's about 1,200 school districts, there's over 1,000 cities. Well, the state is not hiring a lobbyist to go check in on and make sure that cities, counties, and school districts are following state law and lobbying them. No, we know that's our job.
Austin-based lobbyist Luis Figueroa testified against the bill, citing concerns the legislation may harm the voices of those far away from the Capitol.
We're a small county in the Panhandle, having a shared association or a shared lobbyist is much more cost beneficial than sending your own personal employee week in and week out.
Democratic Senator Sarah Eckhart voted against the bill earlier this month.
It is designed to silence local governments which do not make campaign contributions to elected officials as other interests do, and prevent them from having professionals who can navigate the, frankly, incredibly opaque process of legislation.
Middleton does not feel the legislation would silence dissent.
This will allow everyone to represent their districts more directly without these middlemen between local government and your state elected officials.
Michael Richardson, East Texas News Weekend.
The lobbying bill is now out of committee. It passed the Senate during the last special session. On that vote, East Texas Senator Robert Nichols voted present.